worked for our community college system in Virginia, running a program that I'd actually helped create when my husband was governor, but then came on as its executive director more recently, that helped work with young people coming out of the foster care system to get a higher education degree to get into higher education through the community colleges. Young people coming out of foster care, not surprisingly, without family support, financial resources, are very, enter onto a higher ed path at much lower rate than their peers and succeed in getting a degree at much lower rate. So this program was attempting to address that, but it also gave me a window into the community college world. And yes, to a lot of students who really, finances is a real issue from semester to semester. You know, you put together enough package to get one semester's worth of credits at one semester's worth at a time is what I saw my students doing. And I'm so proud of what Hillary is proposing around free community college, debt-free college for most families, or debt-free college for all families ultimately, and some very concrete proposals like summer Pell. You know, so many students should be going to school year-round because they're working part-time, they're juggling a lot of things, so you can get a full year's worth of credit and get out in time if you are able to get credits in the summertime. But right now, our rules don't allow you to get help with Pell. So simple things like that, all the way up to her proposals, which she has proposals for how to pay for. It's all doable. You know, there are industrialized nations that do it. There's no reason we, this greatest nation in the world, can't do it. Make higher ed much more accessible, especially to those who need the higher ed as a pathway forward. So I hear what you're saying, and what we don't always, frankly, there are a lot of schools where the parents are more worried about the finances than the kids, but you come to a school like this, where we got a lot of folks who are, the students are trying to figure out how to make that financial package work every single day. And I'm really excited about the opportunities to work together going forward.
Now I have to follow up with that, because we've been talking about college and career readiness, but a big part of major topic of conversation in this election has been early childhood. And we all know that cognition and cognitive development starts at a very young age. What is Hillary Clinton and Tim Kaine's plan or agenda for forwarding maybe pre-K or early childhood?
Great, thank you for that. And somebody else on the panel will correct me if I get the statistic wrong, but here's the most poignant statistic about early education is that young people from more disadvantaged backgrounds come into kindergarten having heard 30 million fewer spoken words than their peers. Did I get the number right? Isn't that remarkable? Having heard 30 million fewer spoken words. We're talking about parents who are struggling to make ends meet and not having the sheer time to interact with their children, and maybe not having had, maybe being pretty young parents themselves, and maybe not having had parenting role models. So we're talking about kids who may not have had breakfast, may not have had support in all kinds of ways when they show up in the morning at kindergarten. My kindergarten teachers tell me they can tell the day the kids walk in the door whether they've had a high-quality pre-K experience before. If the social emotional learning, the support for learning to love learning, the gaining verbal abilities, you know, we're talking about getting kids literate early on, but some of these children literally learning to voice how to express their opinions and their needs, and to communicate, to work collaboratively. I love watching good early education teachers teach kids empathy. You know, we ask our teachers to do a lot, and they do teach kids how to get along, and so I'm very proud to support both Hillary. Tim worked very hard as governor of Virginia during a time of during the worst recession since the 1930s, despite having to make very tough calls on the budget to expand pre-K in Virginia, and then Governor McAuliffe, who my boss helped carry it forward, to another degree, and Hillary is proposing that, yes, we should have high-quality early education available to all 3- and 4-year-olds, especially those at risk, and has concrete proposals for how to do it in partnership with the states. Michael, we should make you answer a question. Can I jump in? So tell us about your experience you're our K-12 teacher here. What's working, what's not? How can the feds be a better partner?
How about that?
That's a lot of pressure to speak for my entire profession. I think what's working is, as Ruben said, addressing it's not a cookie cutter model. What works over here doesn't work over here, and recognizing the independent needs of the students, recognizing the independent, not even just the demographics, but the independent spirit of a particular building or a particular community, I think is crucial. And then adapting what we as educators do to meet the needs, like you said, meeting the students where they're at instead of where we want them to be. I think that's going to be key. And in terms of support, I think obviously you spoke to the economics of it, allowing us to be professionals in that respect. And I know that many of my colleagues have taken on second jobs to make ends meet as an educator with at least a bachelor's degree, if not a master's, and yet they're working nights to support their families. And that doesn't give them as much energy and staying power and just overall love of the career that they would have if they were able to go home every night and love on their family. And
we don't have doctors and nurses who have to have second jobs, do we?
Not anymore.
We do not.
We did initially, we did about 10 years ago in terms of the nursing profession, but hospitals and around the country hiked nurse salaries because they understood that the shortage meant real consequences to people who were ill.
So as a special education teacher in the district too, I've seen the importance of investing in an educator. We're having a difficult time recruiting teachers into the profession because we've been demonized and blamed for everything that's wrong in public education. So we need to change the narrative to focus on how we can get teachers into the program. You know, the pipeline from the universities. You interested in becoming a teacher?
We'll work on that.
Recruit them at every chance you get. But also, you know, as we invest in the teaching profession, going back to early childhood, pre-K, I'm a product of Head Start. Back in Kansas, I grew up in a small community where the neighborhood I grew up was primarily Mexican American. We grew up south of the tracks. Didn't have a lot of opportunities, but I'm thankful for the education opportunities at that time that I had, that I wish more students had here. You know, and the cuts in public education aren't necessarily, you know, across the board. A lot of them are at the early preschool stage, where if we invest in children, so that college preparedness isn't taking honors classes in high school, but investing in pre-K, early childhood, so that they have a good basic foundation to get better. That's what college preparedness is all about.
And Hillary really is focusing, very focused, as am I, on how do we elevate and modernize the profession. And it is, I mean, resources is part of it, absolutely. We shouldn't have teachers with masters, et cetera, who have to have second jobs. When we were having this debate in Virginia, we had somebody send us information about a teacher who we were told was on food stamps. And I said, no, that can't be. That must be, you know, anecdote gone wild. But we went and checked, and sure enough, this was a veteran teacher, but had several children, and you know, was on food stamps. Really? So we've got to do the resource thing, but we've also got to figure out how to elevate and modernize the profession. And some of that is valuing and appreciating the good hard work that's going on. And I love hearing you talk about Chaparral High School. Did I say it right? Yes. But one of the things that I would love to help Hillary and her team do after election, when we make our is to help shine the spotlight on programs that are working. And you know, we talked about more effective clearinghouse role, maybe even at the federal level, but also, well, just in all kinds of ways, spotlighting things that are working. Because when a school like that has figured out how to move more than double graduation rate, and with a community that's got plenty of challenges, that's a model that others can learn from. I've got a school district in Virginia that I just could not be more proud of. That's a district with high poverty and a number of students coming with English language learner background that has closed its achievement gap on graduation rates between its African American and Caucasian students. How about that? Not narrowed it, closed. Yeah. They're not on all metrics, but on their graduation rate, and they did it because they've been focused on it, and they set that as a goal, and they've gone after it. And so when somebody pulls off something like that, let's look and see what they did and how we can replicate that, what we can learn.
And I'm sure if you come back in a few years, basic will be at that level too, right?
Yeah.
What Ann Holton has been doing for this campaign, whether it was in Pittsburgh or whether it's here in Henderson, is also something that Hillary did with some AFT members last February, which is to spend a couple of hours not just listening to teachers, but answering people's questions and really thinking through how do we address what you just said? How do we address what Michael and Ruben are saying about what is it that we need to do to give teachers the supports they need so that they can unlock children's minds? And part of it is, and I was struck by this, there's a new study that EPI did, one of the economic groups in Washington did, that showed that in the mid-90s, basically, teachers who had the same skills and knowledge as others were making the same as other professions. Now, in 2016, teachers make about 17% less with the same skills and knowledge as people in other professions. And yet, what teachers do is they go home at night, and everyone who has taught does this. We go home and we gnaw our jaws, and we think about what are we going to do tomorrow in terms of teaching. What worked today, what didn't work today, and that's in between grading papers upon papers upon papers.
I have to brag on, I was just with Jill Biden, Dr. Jill Biden, Vice President Biden's wife. She and I spent the weekend campaigning together, and Jill is a full-time community college professor for one of our Virginia community colleges, does developmental English, remedial English, works with most vulnerable students, teaching them to write. And every time I've ever been with Jill anywhere, she's grading papers in the car, she's grading papers on the bus, she's grading papers in the plane. Vice President Biden's out there waxing forth and visiting and entertaining everybody, and she's in the back grading papers, doing what teachers do. She's a superstar.
I think we still have time for one question from the audience, if the panel's willing. You want me to choose? I get to choose. Lady in the green there.
Guys, thank you so much. I know some of you. My name is Ellison Turner. I'm a past president of the Nevada Parent Teacher Association. Currently, I serve as their federal legislative chair, and most of my work is at the national level. But here's a question I'd be very interested in hearing your comments on, or I guess it's a statement. I believe that one of the biggest problems we have in this state, and Ruben can certainly speak to that among others, is that we don't help the public understand the benefits and features of public education. So we hear a lot of things. For example, my favorite question of all time came from a couple who said, we both attended parochial school, we chose not to have children. Why should we pay taxes for public schools? And I said, well, here's the thing. When you flip a light switch, you expect the light to come on, right? Where do you think those people come from? Where do you think your grocery checker comes from? Your nurse, your doctor, God forbid, your home health aide. Where do you think those people come from? They come from public education. Everyone is vested in public education. not just people who have students in K-12 or in the university and state college systems. So here we've seen kind of that come full circle where we just, thank goodness, got vouchers by any other name, a big part of education savings accounts. And the premise is false because they're based upon, well, let's give that money to the families to spend as they will, not realizing that you're still benefiting from public education. So with that as a huge overarching thing, I would be very interested to hear your thoughts on what we can do better in that way. Thank you.
So, there was a new study that was done by Phi Delta Kappan, which every year does a study about schools. And the first question was asking people what they thought the purposes of schools were. And this gets to your question. By a third, people said academics, skills and knowledge, and democracy. And frankly, in this election, we've seen we actually need to do a lot more in terms of creating the democracy and pluralism and diversity and celebrating it. But I think what's happened is that in the last 15 years in particular, the purpose of school has gotten narrowed to how well, and I don't intend this to be political, I'm just how well kids are doing on a math or English score, or maybe a graduation rate, as opposed to what is the public good of public education, pre-K through college, in terms of how we ensure that the next generation, we do this a lot, from generation to generation, how we ensure that the next generation is the guardians of the future, are the people who guard our security, are the people who guard our future, are the people who tend to our knowledge. And when a community understands that and feels that, then there's real support for public education. When it's narrowed to making sure a child does well, as important as that is to that child,